Today is January 21st, and these are the most important America First news stories that broke while you were at work. Today was a huge news day. Donald Trump flew to Switzerland and took over the WEF conference in Davos. He went head-to-head with Gavin, Newsom, and the rest of the globalists, and we have the complete breakdown. And a huge breaking news that is going on right now. That will be our top story. Before we get to that, though, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. That helps us out a lot. And secondly, here is the link to our midday update so you can get all of the news throughout the day. Let's get to our top story. So Donald Trump just posted this message on Truth Social. It has huge breaking news and implications for Greenland. This just after he finished his first keynote address in Davos, Switzerland at the World Economic Forum meeting. Let me read this post. This is huge news. Based upon a very productive meeting that I had with Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. This solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Based upon this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect on February 1st. Additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be made available as discussions progress. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and various others as needed will be responsible for these negotiations and report to me directly. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So Donald Trump pushed the football further in his attempt to get Greenland under American occupation. This is huge news, and this has been a battle with both NATO, the European leaders that are at the WEF, and this was the major message of Donald Trump's first keynote to the leaders. Now let's get to our second story, which is related to this, where Donald Trump breaks down this information further.
Well, we have a concept of a deal. I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland, and it has to do with the security, great security, strong security, and other things.
The market, 600 points, getting back a lot of some of the nervousness we had in the last couple of days. The tariffs are off. Nothing happens on February.
What this gentleman's talking about is right about 1:30 p.m. Eastern, the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ skyrocketed as this news broke.
First?
No, we took that off because it looks like we have pretty much a concept of a deal.
A deal of ownership, a deal...
Well, it's a little bit complex, but we'll explain it down the line. But the Secretary General of NATO and I and some other people were talking, and it's the kind of a deal that I wanted to be able to make.
Where does Denmark, did they weigh in on what they want, what they would agree to?
Well, I assume they did because he very much represents, he's a strong leader. Mark, you know Mark, Rutte. And he, I assume he's been speaking to them. He's been speaking to all of them.
So let me jump in here. Mark Rutte is in charge of NATO. He's the head person. He's talking about aligning the Danish prime minister, who has been a thorn in the side to Donald Trump on his attempt to get Greenland. Second person, though, that's in play is Finland's president and Greenland's prime minister. All of those individuals are kind of wrangling here, but Donald Trump has crossed the first line, which is getting the head of NATO to align in getting the United States control of Greenland.
Are mineral rights involved? Is ownership involved? Did the Golden Dome sway people?
I don't want to say yet, but...
The Golden Dome was very compelling today when you talked about that.
Yeah, the Golden Dome, and they're going to be involved in the Golden Dome, and they're going to be involved in mineral rights, and so are we.
It's not specific enough to know at this point how long this lasts, whether it's...
Forever.
Forever.
It'll be forever.
This is huge. And again, what Donald Trump did just within hours of landing in Switzerland is completely dominated the world's leaders. He was dictating the terms of this deal straight away with his keynote address, and every single reporter that was coming up to him after was asking various questions, one of which was in regards to the Danish Prime Minister. This is one of the thorns in the side of Donald Trump, and this response of Trump towards the Danish Prime Minister, again, Denmark has colonial rights, if you will, over Greenland at the moment. This is what the Danish Prime Minister was saying to the press, and this is hearsay that Donald Trump was responding to. So follow this.
This is not something that they are willing to discuss. So what will those negotiations look like?
Well, they didn't tell me that, so when they tell me, because I don't like getting it secondhand. If he wants to tell me, he'll tell me that to my face.
And when will you be discussing this?
I have no idea.
When you said
I'll be discussing it with this man right here.
Mr. President,
He's frankly more important.
Mr. President, when you
So you can see what Donald Trump is doing is he's positioning the head of NATO over the Danish Prime Minister, who has been triangulating conversations with the press all day. This is the art of the deal. But what's interesting also is if you look at Finland, who, again, is one of the smaller Nordic nations and has been vocal against Donald Trump and his attempts in taking over Greenland. This is a fascinating exercise because this is just a 10-minute difference on the left side versus the right side response. But this is important. And the reason I wanted to show you this is this shows the dominance that Donald Trump has right now. Between these two interviews, Donald Trump showed up on site, is the point. And the responses couldn't be more stark and more different between the same person on the same question. Follow this.
First is a direct answer to the question of this panel, can Europe defend itself? My answer is unequivocally yes.
Without the Americans?
Without the Americans, I mean...
How?
Well, look...
But you're relying on them for these key elements. You've said earlier that Europe can defend itself without the Americans. If it comes down...
not exact. That's not a quote.
More or less. More or less. We'll go back to the transcript.
Let's stick to the left on this one, yeah?
More or less. More or less.
I love journalists.
So you can see there his response. Oh, I love journalists. And that's not exactly what I said. You can see it in the side-by-side. And this is the pure emasculation of Finland's president as soon as Donald Trump showed up to the WEF in Davos. The other person, though, that was getting an earful from Donald Trump throughout the whole day was Gavin Newsom. He's been trying to put himself in front of cameras all day long in Davos. Donald Trump called him out at the stage. And this is Gavin's response to Donald Trump's keynote and the power or lack thereof of what Donald Trump was trying to elude. So let's see and hear from Gavin and some wise words from Soy Boy.
You were obviously named by President Trump during that speech. Yeah. What was your reaction to what he had to say about you?
None. I think he said something very different last night. I didn't hear new scum. I heard new green scam. But I mean, come on, it was remarkably boring. It was remarkably insignificant. He was never going to invade Greenland. It was never.
Pay attention here. Gavin Newsom doesn't know that at this exact moment, Donald Trump was negotiating with Rutte, who's in charge of NATO, and then the news broke. So what Gavin is trying to do, right, is to make himself relevant on the world stage. What he just did is completely embarrass himself as he's going up against the most dominant person, Donald Trump, in world politics.
Real. So that was always a fade. And so he says, well, we should negotiate. Well, everybody here has been willing to negotiate for a year. So it had fire and fury signified absolutely nothing. Even by Trump standards, I was rather curious. And there was boorish parts of it, but those were not even that consequential, including name-checking people he likes, people he didn't like. So, I just...
What Donald Trump was doing in the first third of his keynote is he had all of the leaders of the Western European nations in the front row, and he was calling them out name by name and saying how dependent each one of those countries is on U.S. aid. That's a true statement. And he also said how dependent each one of those countries is on the U.S. military. Also a true statement. This was a dominating appearance by Donald Trump, and this is just the first hours of the first day that Donald Trump is on the ground in Switzerland.
Honestly, I was a little disappointed. It was a little nonplussed.
Did it stand out to you that he said Iceland multiple times when he was talking about Greenland?
And that every time a windmill turns, it costs $1,000. A lot of stuff stands out. None of this is normalized. There's a normalization of deviancy and consciousness and, comments and commentary. No other president, he's held to the curve. He's graded on a curve. I mean, it's really some jaw-dropping and remarkable statements that just, fly in the face of facts and evidence and common sense. So
what doesn't fly in the face here of facts is your underperformance and driving California into the ground, Gavin Newsom. And I have a question. Maybe this is a good one for the comments, so leave this down below. Why is the governor of California at Davos? Who is he meeting with? Who's putting money into his 2028 coffers? Because we all know that Gavin has designs on running up against J.D. Vance in 2028. Why is Gavin there? Why is Caitlin Collins trying to make him relevant? These are all questions that I think need to be asked.
But you've heard them over and over and over again. Again, for the European audience, that may have been a new speech. My God, there wasn't anything new about that speech for the American audience. The only thing that was new is he said he's willing to negotiate, but wait a sec, that's not new either, because EU's been saying we've wanted to negotiate for over a year.
You criticized world leaders when you got here, saying that some of these European leaders have capitulated to the president.
In the past,
you said you should have brought knee pads. What have you heard from them since then?
A lot. I heard a surprising number say, "Glad you made those comments."
Well, glad you made those comments about me. I mean, who are you talking to? When you're the governor of California, for Christ's sake, and you're trying to demean world leaders at a convention of world leaders, and you're trying to make yourself relevant by saying the world leaders are kowtowing to Donald Trump. That's a true statement. In fact, everything I just said is true. But my question is, why are you there, Gavin? Why? Because in this next clip that just broke this afternoon, Jack Posobiec was asking Gavin Newsom about his response to the church incident in Minneapolis over the weekend with Tim Walz and with Jacob Frey, the mayor, and having those basically Antifa types storming a Catholic church during Sunday services. Let's see how relevant Gavin Newsom is here to what is, quite frankly, one of the most viral stories going on right now in the States.
It's amazing. Yes. It's a remarkable success.
Governor Newsom, leader like you. Isaac, it's fine, dude. I'm not. Governor Newsom, you remember, I'm friends with Charlie. I was friends, obviously, as you know.
Yeah,
I always appreciate your interview. Quick question: you mentioned Minneapolis. Any comment on this Don Lemon charging those guys into the church like that?
It's funny. Someone mentioned Don Lemon and Trump the other day, and so I have no idea what that's about.
Big viral story. He had a bunch of agitators. They ran into some kind of church. Don Lemon.
Into a church?
Yes.
Even focus on this.
No, it's not even at this focus. Literally don't know anything about it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks,
Great.
So there you go. This is Gavin Newsom at the world stage at Davos, right in front of all of these European leaders. He's criticizing them for kowtowing to Donald Trump, and he has no comment, and in fact is totally unaware of what happened with Don Lemon and the storming of the Catholic Church in Minneapolis. Weak. Let's all agree on this, that there's no doubt that Gavin Newsom does have knowledge of what happened. He just knows better as to not comment there, because if you're going to be running for Democrat president nominee, right, or presidential nominee in 28, you sure as heck can't piss off the progressive left. And what is the progressive left doing right now? They're storming Catholic churches, right, in name of ICE and compassion. Talking about ICE and compassion, this gentleman, a congressman here, this is their latest response. This is as good as it gets for the Democrats in Washington, D.C., as to what they think and what they're planning to do with ICE. You have to see this.
And we must, finally, we must reform ICE. But it looks at this stage, folks, ICE is beyond reform. ICE is totally out of control. And this week, I intend to introduce a bill to abolish ICE. We need to make ICE go away. 2003, before 2003, without ICE, various federal agencies were able to take care of business, and we can do this without ICE. But we do not need the murderers. We do not need this paramilitary organizations, members on our street.
So these are the talking points of the Democrats. This is as good as they can come up with. And believe you me, they're running this message into midterms, which is ICE is bad, right? And we need to defund ICE, and we need to go back to pre-2003 before ICE's origination. This is not a winning message with the American people. The Democrats have a leg up going into midterms. Precedent says, history says, that the opposing party to the party that has the presidency in midterms, I think it's about 96 or 7% of the time, will win back seats. If this is your message, Hakeem Jeffries, leader of the Democrats, allowing one of your congresspeople to go put up a defund ICE bill into Congress, this again is not your winning message. This is not what the American people want to see. Because what happened just as this congressperson was in front of microphones this afternoon, well, we have another incident, a dangerous one at that, between ICE and a convicted illegal alien.
El Salvador, who's involved in a human smuggling operation, has 2 prior arrests for inflicting injury on a spouse or cohabitant. An immigration judge issued him a final order of removal back in 2019, Paul. And it goes on to read this. This is a statement provided to us by Tricia McLaughlin from DHS. In a dangerous attempt to evade arrest, this criminal illegal alien weaponized his vehicle and rammed law enforcement. Fearing for his life and safety, an agent fired defensive shots. The criminal illegal alien was not hit and attempted to flee on foot. He was successfully apprehended by law enforcement. The illegal alien was not injured, but a CBP officer was injured. These dangerous attempts to evade arrest have surged since sanctuary politicians, including Governor Newsom, have encouraged illegal aliens to evade arrests and provided guides advising illegal aliens how to recognize ICE, block entry, and defy arrest. As we well know, our officers are now facing a
3,200% in violent incidences as it relates to ICE. And again, look at the timing on this, right? This is 11 o'clock Pacific this afternoon. This is the same exact time. And by the way, keep in mind, you can't see my cursor. This is in California, Willowbrook, California. So just as Gavin Newsom is halfway across the world in Switzerland, right, trying to make himself relevant on the global stage, we have this incident, a violent incident, an interaction between a convicted felon, right, that had deportation orders that ignored him completely, and the ICE officers in California. But that's not it. What were the Minnesota folks doing this afternoon as it relates to the ICE efforts? This is Greg Bovino walking through a supermarket parking lot this afternoon. We've been told that they're respectful protests and peaceful protests. But are they? So again, this is Greg Bovino, who's the chief agent in charge of ICE. And he's walking through. They're not confronting any of the protesters. They're getting food thrown at them as they're trying to make America safer again. So what is all of this leading to? Well, this is where it's going. J.D. Vance is going to be going to Minneapolis tomorrow. So the optics of what's going on in Minneapolis, with the Department of Justice handing out subpoenas to Tim Walz, to A.G. Ellison, and to the mayor, right, Jacob Fry of Minneapolis, well, JD's going now to see it for himself. So we have Pam Bondi of the DOJ and the vice president all making their presence known in Minneapolis. So the optics of, again, have gotten the attention of our leaders, right, the Republican leadership, and JD is going himself to see what's happening in Minneapolis. Now, for those dog lovers out there, I wanted to show you this, right, as we're coming towards the end of our newscast. This is Dina. Dina is one of ICE's dogs. We can all agree Dina's a cutie, right? And we could also always have compassion for our furry friends. Who doesn't? Well, this person doesn't. Dina was being fed, and you can't see it perfectly in my screenshot here, but she's being housed as a kennel as her ICE agent leader, right, stays at hotels. And this kennel evidently has an activist within it, because this is Dina's feeding schedule, and you can see the comments, ICE out. So the agents of destruction and the same people that are storming Catholic churches are now going after our animals, the animals that are actually trying to make our streets safer. So I wanted to end with this story because I want you to see the type of people that we're working with, right? And that we oppose, and that we're trying to educate at times or have educated discussions with to try to have the best ideas win. Well, this liberal was responding to J.D. Vance earlier in the week, making the announcement that he and his wife, Usha, are expecting their fourth child. So this lib took to social media, this mother, I mean, again, this is not a young person. This is a person that has children. This mother took to social media, and this is what she had to say.
Usha Vance, that is gross. That is gross. You let this thing leave a load inside of you on purpose. See, y'all, that's why it is so important that we teach our daughters to have self-love and self-respect. There is no amount of proximity to power or money. The quickness with which I would be in my closet looking for a hanger. The amount of pennyroyal tea I would be drinking. The size of the staircase, okay? Does Erica know? Did y'all text her personally? Or does she find out on the interwebs like the rest of us? Gross.
Let me know what you think in the comments down below. We'll leave you with that. So as again, we started the newscast of the top stories for today. Please make sure that you subscribe to America First Alerts. We summarize all of the stories, put them in packages multiple times a day. We have a midday alert and a dinner time alert. So definitely subscribe so that we can get you the top stories in your inbox. As we started with, Donald Trump is making his aggressive move towards Greenland and acquiring it. We've done multiple videos and breakdowns of why Donald Trump wants this. The point of the matter is he's going to be successful. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of Donald Trump's efforts, not only at the WEF, but with his efforts in trying to acquire Greenland. Is it a good idea? Is this something that we should be doing? I think wholeheartedly yes. Second question for you in the comments is, why is Gavin Newsom at the World Economic Forum in Davos? As you saw, one of our stories in the middle of the segment was about a violent ICE incident that happened in California just as Gavin Newsom was taking to CNN's airwaves and trying to be relevant on the world stage. So those are your top stories for January 21st. Again, subscribe and like this video if you haven't done so yet, and we'll see you in the next video.
We won!
Okay, let's go.
We won!